Now, as you can see, we are getting ready for what will be an interesting race in our SVA finale, I suppose we could call it.
Well, let's call it SVRA, and this is what we're calling an all-comers race.
Well, that's what we call a finale.
Yeah, no, I think Tony...
I'm sorry to use the French vernacular for you.
I think Tony went through the paddock and said, hey, you're still here? You want to come run this session? Just because of the weather and the crazy situations that are here. So this is our Group 6-8, Group 6, Group 8, Group 10, 11, 12A, and 12B. But I've got a surprise. I know.
You have me a group.
We have Rick Parent, the chief of our tech inspection. He knows, he has to know everything about cars for the last 100 years and motorsports and their specs. So quickly, Rick, if you were on an elevator with somebody, how would you explain these groups? How do you group them like this?
You got my 3 minutes ready.
Well, they're all really different, so
Good answer.
I don't know where to start on that one.
Well, I saw the David Jans in the LMP3 car at first, and so he would be Group 11 probably, right?
Correct. I would say the best way to group them is they're different colors.
Oh, okay, yeah. But that's not how we do it here. So Group 6 is like big bore American muscle cars. Group 8 is like what I'd call medium bore.
Yes.
Before 1972. Group 10 is like purpose-built race cars.
Correct.
And then Group 12 is kind of the same thing, except it's after 1972. So
Correct.
it's like big bore, medium bore after 1972.
Exactly. So it's not a bad group, except for David Jan's car. That's a prototype that's 5 years old or so.
And now we can see here from these great drone shots that there is dry on the track. There's also wet out there. And so, in your opinion, who's got some of the advantages? Like if you were to DraftKings this right now, pick our top 3.
Based on the track conditions, I don't know what the back of the course looks like, but I assume that David Jan's car does not have wets on it. The Group 12 cars and the Group 6 cars have treaded tires. Well, Group 12 is, they could run either.
And Gary Moore came into your office yesterday and was talking to us. He's wanting to run more in the rain. He's in this beautiful Mercury Cougar there behind Lindstrom in that Mustang. So do you think he's on rains, or do you think he's on slicks, or bias ply is what we call them?
Well, he's on bias ply. They may or may not be grooved, but if he's got the grooved Hoosier tires, the TDRs, and the track is too dry, the tires will go away in a hurry, and he'll be slipping and sliding all over the place. But just from looking at the front straightaway, everybody's probably got standard tires on and not wet. So we'll find out. But Gary's a great guy, and he absolutely loves that Cougar.
Yeah.
And he drives the heck out of that thing, so it'll be fun to watch.
Great shot of our man there, Tom Lemkuhl, splitting, and basically he's saying, you go to the right, you go to the left, and when they line up behind the pace car, that is where they should be on the track. Because now they have a full lap to go back and forth, get heat in their tires, as we see there, probably Glenn Maurer in that Alfa Romeo. And then in front of him should be Dave Nicholas. And the cool thing about that 2002 BMW there, second to last, he won in that car in 1973, the Camel GT here. Same car, same driver. A little bit more age on the driver than the car, but the car looks as it was in 1973. He was in here with us talking in the Group 1. But some neat cars there. So Scott Borchetta there in the Corvette, Jeff Lindstrom, Gary Moore, John Clowder, Wally Dallenbach. There's John Nash again. So John Nash back out there. Tony must have been like, hey, you want to go? And, of course, he'll be like, yeah, I'll go. And then we've got Dave Nicholas, Ron Fuller, Glenn Maurer, Bill Harris, H.D. Woodruff in that beautiful BMW 2002. And, so Jessie is here with us also, our tickets guru and our registrar. And she just asked Rick in a note, she will not talk on the microphone, how do you grid these cars?
The cars are gridded by time, by their lap time. Basically, the way they finish the race is where we do it standard. But right now, since we're combining a bunch of groups, it's all by lap time. So we don't put the fastest cars in the rear, so they run over the slower cars right off the bat. The cars at the rear will be lapped probably one time, maybe two, by the end of this race. But Glenn Maurer and John Nash are Group 8 cars, as well as David Nicholas. And Dave's car, he actually found that thing in a barn somewhere in the Northeast, and they pulled it out of the barn, and it still had this original paint on it that the car had on it when he raced it. So basically they've gone through the motor and the chassis, and everything looks brand new when you look under the car or under the hood, but the car looks like it rolled right off the track in 1974. It's kind of beat, but the paint looks great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it over to the professional Jonathan to call the start of this race.
Well, here we go. This could be interesting because the bright orange car of Jans has been so quick, but so too the Scott Borchetta's 98 Corvette, who streams into the lead in excellent fashion. Excellent start by Scott Borchetta. And it is the 98 who leads from the 70, but he's now going to make the slingshot if he can around the outside as they go up the hill. I don't think he's going to do it, though, because Borchetta has just closed the door there. Gary Moore in third place by the looks of things. And Lindstrom in fourth. Dallenbach, Wally Dallenbach, a mighty Wally Dallenbach, right in the thick of it in fifth place in the 23.
Fourth place. He's in that grabber blue Mustang 302, Boss 302 is Borchetta, man. He's really hooked up in that Corvette. Now, DJ, once his tires come to him, he's got a lot more downforce. Should hug the turns a little bit. That's Lindstrom there and that beautiful Motorola Cup Mustang. Have a lot of different Mustangs out here in different iterations in this group.
There is a lot of water on the track as well, so that'll be interesting.
Although I would argue that it's pretty dry now, though. There are some wet patches, but would you say that the tired or the treaded guys are going to try to find those wet patches or just stay on the dry?
They better.
Now, I tell you what, Scott Borchetta is going to be with us in the number 48 Big Machine Vodka Spiked Cooler. So he has an advantage right now out on the track. He's looking around in that beautiful Corvette that's currently in first, about to get passed right there.
Oh, look at the speed.
Jans just out-braking him into 10A. But Scott's probably looking around and trying to figure out where the wet, where the dry is for his TA2 race, and trying to decide if he's going to go out and which tire setup.
Good point. Yeah, he's got another race coming up, so he doesn't need to have any heroics coming up because the TA2 race will be in action soon, and that should be a cracker.
And there goes two-time TA champion, Trans Am champion Wally Dallenbach taking third from Gary Moore in that Boss 302. So, Rick, people are watching this right now, and I bet you a lot of people are saying, I want to get into vintage racing. And the best advice that I can give them before they buy or build a car is to contact you or somebody that does your job so that you can save them from a ton of headaches. Explain that a little bit.
Sure, be glad to. The best way to get into vintage racing is to find a car on Craigslist that the guy's had in his garage for a long time, and his wife's saying, get that thing out of here now. So it's a lot cheaper.
Or you get out of here now.
Yeah, it's a lot less expensive to buy a old race car than it is to build one from scratch, because the majority of the parts are there. They may need to be refreshed or whatever, but you have a good platform to start with.
That's a beautiful car. Vinyl roof, Mercury Cougar. You don't see too many of those.
No, it's really, he really takes good care of that car, and it's fast. It's fast.
Now, is that the car, or is that the car and the driver?
Well, Gary is an aggressive driver, but he's not over-aggressive. So the car is good. You need three things for any type of racing, especially vintage racing. The car's got to turn and stop. It's got to do what it's asked to do, and you have to have a motor that'll get it down the straightaway, and you also have to drive it. So, a lot of guys would be better served spending money on a driver's coach than upgrading their parts, because once you drive your car to the limit, then you can start working on your car. But a lot of guys spend a lot of money on their car, and they kind of get upset and accuse other people of cheating because
they haven't actually learned how to drive it to the limit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But if anybody knows how to build race cars, he's like the preeminent expert on racing Spitfires. But he has also built, restored some of the most famous Trans Am cars, including some of the Penske, Sunoco, Donahue Camaros.
Wow.
This man right here, award-winning cars that win like awards at Amelia Island. He has hunted them down and fixed them back up to racing condition, and your customers now race those cars.
Yes, that's correct. Worked on several Penske cars, and funny story. the number one Penske Sunoco Camaro that was lost in 67. It went to Europe in 68. Been gone for all these years.
Nobody knew where this thing was for, 25, 30 years.
They didn't even know which country it was in?
No.
They thought it was dead. A lot of people thought it was like buried underground or something.
Well, the 69, one of the 69s got destroyed in the Mexican earthquake, and nobody's resurrected that one. It's gone. It's under Mexico somewhere. But this one was found. He's been looking for it for years and years and years, and he just chased down some leads and actually found it in a barn in Austria. It was in a castle stable. The guy didn't know what he had. They went over there and they had the chassis number for that particular car, so they found it. It was the chassis number, put it on a trailer and brought it home, and today it's perfectly restored and sitting in a garage.
How would you put a car on a trailer and drive it from Austria to North Carolina? That's a crazy drive.
Well, yeah, good one. You know what? It was in such horrible, horrible condition. It was palletized. They put all the parts on pallets, wrapped them up, and shipped them over.
And I went to Rick's shop and looked at it in different iterations, and it wasn't much to look at first. And then when you brought it to Amelia Island, it was as it raced. Beautiful car. And it was kind of neat to unveil it because it's kind of a car of a myth and legends that people have been looking for this thing forever.
Yes.
And here it is in his backyard for a year while he's fixing it up as we watch John Nash, one of our favorites, going up the hill in that Lotus Super 7, which looks like a tiny car when it gets behind these Mustangs.
So what else does John Nash race? I've only ever seen him in that silver Super 7.
Well, he's got two, and they look almost identical, just a little bit different roll cage. But what he does is when he's in Group 8, he races it like that. And when he has to be in Group 3, what does he have to do, Rick? Add weight?
Well, that's his Group 3 car right there, so it's 200 pounds heavy for this particular class.
And what is that, 20% of the weight of a Lotus 7?
yeah, it is. It is actually. But yeah, he's got two cars, and he just loves driving. He doesn't care what the weather is. He's got a big baggie he puts on over his driver's suit with a head hole in it, and he drives around in a plastic bag.
Yep, I've seen him do it.
And you know what I love about John Nash, and a lot of the drivers here, including Dave Nicholas that's out there in that BMW, is their wife, their partner, is having just as much fun at the track on the weekends as they are. I think Lorna might be having more fun watching than she is. And there's Rosie right there, Dave Nicholas's wife, just off to our left. And look at the smile on her face as she's watching Dave Nicholas come around. And they just have so much fun here, cheering for their husbands, or sometimes husbands for wives. At Charlotte, we almost had a domestic assault and abuse with John and Debbie Cloud on the track together in the Roval, because Debbie Cloud can get really aggressive, and she does not mind bumping her husband out of the way.
I love it. So this is right. Am I saying that this is the last SVRA action of the day?
It is.
It's been a strange day, but
there's the man right there in that BMW. And Rick, you've restored many of these BMW 2002s. One of the coolest cars, bubble top cars. What makes these so much fun to drive in these B sedans?
I don't know what it is, but the 2002 and the 510s they just do what you ask them to do. They're very reliable. They go, they stop. They're wonderful. They turn. They do everything you ask them to do in a pleasant fashion. They're not scary, whereas Triumph Spitfire could be a little sketchy.
Yeah. Right there, that's Dave Nicholas living the dream. I mean, that's
right.
The closest thing you can get to a time machine. He won here in the championship in the Camel GT 1973 in that car, exactly the livery. All they had to do is add an extra little roll bar to the back. I saw Kevin had to do that per our spec, and then he freshened up everything, put new fuel cell, new seat belts and things like that. But we had dinner with Dave the other night, and he's like, it's a time machine. I feel like I'm back in the car in 1973. The course hasn't changed much except through the 10A, 10B section, and here he is racing that, our 5-time Group 1 champion, and now we've got Glenn Maurer right behind him in that beautiful Marlboro Alfa Romeo, and I love that car. Don't you love that car?
I do.
David Jans has taken a 16-second lead over Scott Borchetta so far in that beautiful orange car, the orange Arve Riley. But he's been doing that all weekend, to be fair.
Yeah, and he should. He should be that far ahead. He should probably lap the field if we've got 13 minutes left in this race. But Scott Borchetta has a head about him, and he knows that's not his race. He's going to watch. There's nothing Scott Borchetta would like to do than to keep two-time Trans Am champion Wally Dallenbach in his rearview mirror.
Sure.
He'll be upset if he gets passed by that grabber blue Mustang, but he's pretty comfortably in the lead of that. I love that car.
It's really fun. They've had a hard time struggling with the fuel injection the last few times out, but they got it pretty sorted out, and they did well in the Enduro this afternoon, and he's doing well today.
So like when we were at Charlotte last weekend, not to call them out, I was listening to the radio while I was videotaping, and they were smoking, and they had to come in and see Rick at Tech before they were allowed back out. So what are you looking at in those situations when a car's smoking? You love the Maurer family, so you want them to have a good time, but you also don't want them dropping any oil on the track. So what are some of the first things you're telling them?
Find out where it's coming from first. And I went over there and looked at a few things, and it was hard to tell, so it had to be cleaned up and driven around a little bit before they could find the leak again. I don't know ultimately what the leak was. I think their motor was bad because they put a new motor in. As you can see, it's not smoking at all. So it was coming out of the motor somewhere and out of the exhaust pipe, but today it looks good.
But look at this. They're catching up to Dave Nicholas.
You know, Dave's car has a hand-painted name on the back, and it says NASDAR. I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's a story behind it, but the name of the car is NASDAR.
That's pretty cool. And they modeled this car after Snowbeck, who won the championship in France, I believe, in 83 or 84, and they just love it. And so Glenn owns it's funny because they come from circle track, like dirt racing from California, and he owns a circle track racing supply. And here they are out road racing, you know, and so it's just really cool, and they have so much fun. So it's the youngest son, Logan, in that Honda Civic CRX that, you know, he's hoping for rain because he's got front-wheel drive like the Mini Cooper guys do. And then Chase and Glenn seem to share that Alfa Romeo, but we were just talking just a couple of minutes ago before the race that they just have so much fun when they get out of the car.
They do.
And that's Renee Tersilla there. He's with Billy Griffith's outfit, 5 of them from Southern Florida, last year's Trans Am GT champion. And Renee's here with us in SVRA. And so he's Group 12. So explain to the audience one more time why you made Group 12, which is now our fastest growing group.
Group 12 is for the more modern cars like this. They are well, they're not, they're production cars, but the manufacturers actually built them to race as they are. And so the later model cars need a place to go when they're done with their professional series.
So they've kind of been obsoleted from because they've come out with a new iteration. Is that what's happened?
Yes, they've timed out basically, and so they're reasonable to purchase because of that. And so we made a place for them, and they're coming out. I think we had like 5 Mustangs here like that this weekend alone.
Yeah. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you keep up with the NASCAR series, it's going to be about 220 to 250 stock cars that are going to come available at the end of the season because they're switching over, like we talked about, to Pancho Weaver and the Technique new chassis. They're building 400, so there's going to be probably 200. They're going to have a flood of the market.
Now, what happens with them?
We'll see them with us. And we always say that, you know.
Can we start a new category?
We do. We have a stock car category. But SVRA is every other series. Formula One, IMSA, NASCAR, our feeder series for SVRA. Everybody's just hoping that they can get to the point in their career where they can race with us in SVRA. Because we've had Formula One drivers. Bill Elliott's a regular in our paddock, so is Ray Evernham.
Yep.
We've had legends from pretty much anywhere. We had Andy Pilgrim here with us this weekend. So, you know, we always welcome the drivers. They have so much fun. When Bill Elliott's with us, he usually tows his own car, works on his own car. And Bill Elliott's, he's a legend of NASCAR.
Absolutely.
You know? And he just has so much fun working and wrenching and winning.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to see these legs sticking out from underneath one of his cup cars with his McDonald's driver suit legs, you know, sticking out from underneath there. It's great.
And he's so proud. He still fits in the suit, you know, but he told me, he's like, I love this, man. I don't have to go to McDonald's to sign autographs in the morning. I can just come out here and be a race car driver working on his own thing. And that's Bill Elliott, you know, like that's a crazy thing to see. And I hope we see more of that as we're watching DJ Jans out there in that beautiful LMP3 car, developed by his partner Tony Ave, Trans Am champion, and then like Jeff Lindstrom in that Griffin Mustang there. That's basically a Motorola Cup spec Mustang that's been obsoleted.
There's Wally Dallenbach.
That's a beautiful car.
Sounds really good too. I wish we had better sound on these cars.
And I always say that I wish we would do this, but that's SVRA Blue. So I really think we should at least take a second off their qualifying time if they're SVRA Blue. Can you make that happen?
Not this year.
So if you ever do have questions for Rick about building a car, save yourself a headache, a ton of money, and reach out to Rick. Are we allowed to say your email address here publicly?
Yes.
For the millions that are watching?
Yes.
So tell them how they can reach out to you.
I'll be more than glad to help answer any questions you have that, like Ben said, to help you stay away from spending some extra money and getting some extra frustration. My email is rick@svra.com, and always glad to help out the new guys anytime. rick@svra.com.
And I've seen it too, because Rick and I share an office when we come to Road Atlanta, and I'm working on video stuff and he's there. And I bet you if I was in there for 10 or 15 minutes, he'd have 3 different drivers from the paddock come in, and sometimes they're asking him simple questions. Are my seatbelts still legal? Is my helmet still legal? Or sometimes they're like, hey, I really want to change this A-Series engine and I want to run this kind of carburetor, and is that legal? And you're like, yeah, it is, but you're going to have to add weight or add a penalty, or it's not legal, or don't do that, they're not reliable. You're always giving really good advice and saving a lot of headaches. And I saw you talking to this man for about 30 minutes today about great things. He drives a Shelby GT350 with us. He's got a Lola, but I think this is my favorite of his right here, this Trans Am, like Dan Gurney spec car, Group 6 car with the vinyl roof. But what are you, like when they come in and talk to you about different setups, are you giving them advice for quickness and speed, or more for reliability?
It just depends what it is. I want everybody to do the best they can during the weekend, and I suppose at one time, and when I was younger, I would keep my secrets to myself, but there is no secrets, honestly, and I'll help anybody with anything. So whether it's handling or carburetor issues, H.D. Woodruff, Tim, was here this weekend with his BMW, and he couldn't get off a corner to save his life, and he explained what his problem was. And I said, go down 2 sizes on your chokes and let me know what happens. He came back and he said, oh my gosh, my car was 4 seconds a lap faster because when I stepped on the gas, it went.
What does that mean? I don't understand what you just said.
Well, his car was stumbling as he stepped on it coming off a corner, and that's generally a sign of the air flowing over the boosters is not adequate to draw fuel out of the jet well. So the motor's just waiting for fuel. Wait. So when you put the smaller chokes in there, the airspeed is up and it pulls fuel out of the booster at the proper time, and you step on the gas and it goes. And that's a really common problem with guys with Webers or, Solexes, Makunis, whatever. Very, very common. And most of the time, Tim's a good guy, so he took a little advice and he tried it. Other guys look at me like I have 2 heads or something, and they're,
like I just did. And I follow Rick on his social media channels, and he's always dynoing carburetors or engines, and he's always putting up these graphs that I'll never understand. But then you read the comments, and there's a bunch of people that do understand, and they're always real impressed with his analytics in that. So if you ever have questions, reach out to Rick. But like, for example, I remember Dylan and Scott Borchetta were struggling for a while with their Corvette. And you got to be so proud of how quickly Scott Borchetta has become a really good road racer. But you've been helping them out, and you're never shy to offer advice as long as it's for safety, reliability, or speed.
Absolutely. Like I said, there's no secrets, and I don't know everything, but I've got a lifetime full of experience, and be glad to help anybody.
And he's 142 years old.
That's right.
So it's a long lifetime of experience. But how in the world do you do that? Like if I were the head of tech at Trans Am, I'm only having to deal with 5 groups of cars. You're having to deal with every race iteration that's ever happened, usually in the world, and then 100 years of that, because we've got Brian out west that's bringing us 1911 IndyCar racers, and then you've got 2013 Audi LMP cars or Pescarolos. How in the world do you differentiate and keep your head about you?
Like I said, I don't know everything, and honestly, the 1911 or the pre-war cars, the only thing I tell them is don't fall out.
Because they don't have belts, most of them.
Well, but that was by design, by the way.
Yeah, it was always safer in those cars because Patton's Dowling in that ERA. He's like, it's safer to get flung from the car than to crash in it.
That was the belief.
Yeah.
And it proved to be true, too. Because a lot of them burst into flames, and it was better to be able to get out quick.
Yeah.
That ERA is way too fast for a pre-war car. If you've ever seen that thing go, it's like, oh my gosh.
And Patton's can wheel that thing, too. It's really neat. So, Jonathan, let's call this the last 2 minutes of SVRA at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta.
Well, David Jans, as you can see, is well ahead of the pack, but he's had a great weekend and he's enjoyed it in this beautiful Riley. And it's a really good-looking car, too. And despite the fact that he's trounced the opposition, it doesn't matter. He's having a good time. He's probably chasing his own lap time. He's been out in this car all weekend long. Scott Borchetta still in second place, and Scott just did his personal best time of a 1:36.1, so actually quicker than David Jans. So that's pretty impressive. But he's a long way back, some 8 seconds of drift, and he's going to have a nice accolade of saying he's beaten Wally Dallenbach as well. So that's not bad.
Yeah, DJ being such a big Trans Am fanatic, he's going to love that. That's some good bragging rights for DJ Jans out there, and that's just a cool looking car. That looks like, out in this group, it looks like he just went into the future. But me personally, I like the Cougar, I like the Boss, and then I like the B sedan stuff.
I like it all.
Do you really?
I do.
I like it all.
Do you not have you don't seem to have a preference. Like, everybody knows that I like British cars. Do you have I love this group, or do you just like everything?
I like everything. I'm kind of partial to the 2002s and the 510s, but I like everything. I especially like Can-Am cars.
I'm going to give each other, because I'm a British car fan and I cannot be more American. This dude likes American muscle, but he can't be more British. Cockney.
We'll do a birthday swap. I'll get you an Austin Healey 1953.
All right, I'll take
to run the London to Brighton race once a year. They do it.
Sounds good.
And
you can be my co-driver.
Yeah, and you need to give me a chance to drive
Scott Borchetta's car.
That's the one.
All right, can do that. We can make that happen. There he is. Takes the checkered flag. DJ Jans. That sounds like a good deal, Jonathan.
Okay, we'll do it. You like the London to Brighton. You've got to get there and back, though. You can't stop.
I can do that. Do I have to drive on your side of the road?
Yes, yes. Please don't. Please don't go on the right-hand side. That might be a story that the headlines would make. Yes, yeah. American decides his own path.
Way too American. Refuses to drive on the other side of the road.
So, a cracking finish to the SVRA weekend, and all in for our final race. The checkered flag out. Perfect conditions in the end. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. David Jans not getting away as quickly as he'd like. Scott Borchetta taking the lead in that beautiful 98 Corvette. But then David thought about going around the outside, but it wasn't long. And in fact, the drone gave us a great shot for a while. Scott Borchetta led the race, but watch this. Under acceleration, the yellow bullet, the orange bullet, I should say. Dallenbach doing a good job of holding off Gary Moore for a while. Scott Borchetta taking second place. David Jans taking the checkered flag. Scott Borchetta second. Wally Dallenbach in third place. Our thanks to Rick Baran and, of course, Ben Sissel for showing us the action. Confirmation of the results then. David Jans in the Arve Riley AR2 taking the win over Scott Borchetta in the Chevrolet Corvette. Wally Dallenbach in third place. Gary Moore fourth. Jeff Lindstrom in fifth place. John Nash in sixth. David Nicholas seventh. Glenn Mora in 8th position, and Rene Tersilla in 9th position. So plenty of iconic racing around the SVRA season in 2021. They're going to Sonoma, they're going to Laguna Seca, they're going to Watkins Glen, they're going all over the United States. So a pause in the action, and we're getting ready for some more high-end single-seater action coming up as we get ready for the Formula Regional final race of the weekend. And after that, we have some TA2 action, the full race for the mighty TA2s coming up from Road Atlanta.